excuse me, welcome to the 546th Imagine Greater Buffalo program and our 168th YouTube Imagine Buffalo program, hosted by our wonderful downtown Buffalo and Erie County Public Library. Thanks for joining us today. This program is created by the Center for the Study of Art, Architecture, History, and Nature, or C-SAAHN, as I like to pronounce the acronym, and ImagineLifelongLearning.com. Now, before we get started, just a little housekeeping. Everyone watching will be muted and your video turned off. If you have a question or comment, please type it into the chat box and we'll go through them at the end of the presentation as time allows. We are recording this program so you can watch it again later on the Downtown Central Library's Facebook page and YouTube channels. And please, we hope you share the link with others. Now, on to our featured speaker. Reverend Richard Augustyn is the director of Buffalo St. Jude Center. The center was established by the Buffalo Diocese in 1969 in response to a need for better pastoral care for people who were vulnerable or threatened with illness, suffering, and pain. The St. Jude Center is located at the apex of the triangle that forms with Greater Buffalo General Hospital and Roswell Park in the heart of the medical campus and serves a growing hospital community. He has a very encompassing job as the priest at the St. Jude Center and the priest serving, overseeing all the volunteers that work at Kaleida and Buffalo General. So it's good to have you, Father Richard. Take it away.
Good afternoon, everyone. As Dennis says, I'm getting reverb. How come? Oh. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay. So the St. Jude Center was created by Monsignor Edward Wojciechowski. He was the chaplain to Buffalo General and Roswell Park. And because of a few mishaps, he was bugged going for sick calls in the middle of the night. He approached Bishop McNulty with the idea of creating a place of prayer in the middle of the medical corridor and also be a resident for the priest chaplain. After some discussion, the bishop gave him permission with the idea that it be self-sustaining, meaning there would be no monies coming from the diocese, and everything the St. Jude Center would do would be upon donation. Monsignor took out, what happened?
You're all set. You're good.
Okay. Monsignor took out a loan for $50,000 and bought the property on the corner of Ellicott and Carlton, and tore down the house that was on the corner, but kept the Victorian home with what was a stable. When he purchased the property for $50,000, he enlisted the help of what was then the CYAC, Catholic Youth Adults group, and they helped him clean up the house as well as the chapel. As a matter of fact, when I was looking for stuff just to make sure I was giving the right information, I found a package of straw, only to realize as I opened it up, that was some of the straw that they found in the stable when they were cleaning it up. So they thought they would keep that for posterity. So I have that put away. So the center then celebrated its first Mass on Christmas Eve, midnight, 1968. There'll always be a midnight Mass while I'm around or while the center exists, because that is our anniversary date of being born, so to speak. I ran across a lot of articles. This was one of the first ones in the Courier Express, as a matter of fact, giving a picture of Monsignor looking at the icon of St. Jude that came from what was St. John Vianney Seminary that still is in the chapel. The chapel embraces a monastic motif, very austere. The original brick, the only thing that's really new in the chapel are the stained glass windows, but that's back from 1969. The Stations of the Cross, which are antiques, came from the Sisters of Mercy when they were moving from their North Street home. Monsignor would say Mass for the sisters at, believe it or not, 5:30 in the morning. So then when they were closing, they said he could have whatever he wanted for the St. Jude Chapel. So he took the Stations of the Cross and the tabernacle. So those are antiques that came from the sisters. There's an icon of Christ the Healer that Monsignor commissioned the monks, the Kentucky monastery, the abbots. They created this very large mural of Christ the Healer, which is really very appropriate for our setting in terms of being located in the middle of the healthcare community. The altar and the pulpit and the pews eventually were created by those same monks and brought here to Buffalo, and we still use those. The statues of Mary and Joseph that are on the wall were actually, again, Monsignor commissioned them, are wood, and they initially were in the small chapel at Roswell Park, but when that closed, Monsignor actually took them in retirement, and upon his death, gave them to me, and I placed them on the wall between the crucifix. So Mary and the Sacred Heart are on each side of the crucifix. The wrought iron chandeliers and the wrought iron in the chapel all embrace that monastic lifestyle. There was a walkway, a corridor that was created connecting the chapel to the three-car garage, which again, anyone who's been to a monastery will go, that'll be the first thing that would hit you. Wow, this is very monastic in its appearance. And that was done intentionally. There is a simplicity, and in its simplicity, I have heard this time and time again from people who walked into the chapel from the Kevin Guest House, from O'Shea's, from Buffalo General, or from Roswell. They find God. So the chapel was cleaned up, taken care of, and then the house, again, with the help of the CYAC, a very beautiful old Victorian home, both buildings dated 1856, and there are some original materials in the house. There are 5 marble fireplaces. There are original chandeliers that were gas and turned into electricity, a spiraling staircase, which has been cleaned up, the steps to their original state. Through the different years, I've tried to restore each one of the rooms, the living room, the office, the dining room, the upstairs rooms, because it still is a residence for priest chaplains. And in addition to that, back in the early 80s, we saw a need for a meeting space. So with the help of George Panapinto and Pinto Construction, built the hall, which accompanies maybe close to 100 people, as well as the chapel. Chapel seats tightly 100 people. And And above the hall are 2 apartments, again, to be used. The intention was for the priest chaplains. However, with the way the priest supply is going these days, right now I'm the only resident there. From time to time, when people are from out of town and being taken care of at the hospital, I will allow them to use the apartments down the end of the hall. So again, our mission in terms of being attentive to the needs of those who are sick and suffering, whether it be the patient or whether it be their family members, is our primary goal. In addition to doing that, then we have the outreach to the hospitals that we're in the middle of. I'm on call for Roswell Park. I used to work there on a regular basis, but they have their own department. I'm full-time at the Buffalo General and Oshai's Children's Hospital, as well as High Point Nursing Home. So our ministry extends to those facilities and really through the greater Western New York area, because another dream that Monsignor has had and is still alive is the training of people, the professional training of people going into healthcare settings such as hospitals, nursing homes, hospice care. So over the years, we were one of the first clinical pastoral education centers in the area, along with Sisters Hospital. And so we ran that for a while. And then when we saw the need needed to be shifted, we gave up the CPE program, but created what we call the Pastoral Institute. This is the brochure for the Pastoral Institute with a picture of the St. Jude Center. So that now we run a training program, approximately 15 people a session. We're a 22-week period, giving them the skill set to be able to be present to people who are sick and dying in healthcare facilities. Now, over the years, we've trained over 4,000 people in the Western New York area. Some of your local priests have been part of our program. Father Greg Dobson, Father David LaPuma, Father James Cunningham. There are a number of others that I fail to remember, but a lot of the seminarians came here for training, and now they're out in parish life. So we sort of have our impact throughout the Western New York area, and we continue to do that. The training program goes on. It'll start in January again, and we'll enlist the students and do the training, and again, provide people to minister to our hospitals, our nursing homes, and hospice care. So the center received a lot of, I do the gardening, and if you want to see some love, this is a sin of pride. If you want to see some lovely gardens, come down to St. Jude's. I was doing some gardening a couple of years ago on a Saturday, and there was a young couple walking around the house, and the young lady was crying. Now, I was in my dirty clothes and that, but she seemed to be upset. So I walked up to them and I said, "Hello, you seem to be upset. Is there something I can help you with?" And the young lady looked at me and she says, "You're only the gardener. How can you help us?" And so I sort of chuckled and I said, "Well, that's one of the things that I do." And so then I introduced myself, and then she started telling me, that's where I got the full history of what we call the St. Jude Center, that house was owned by the Hawk family. And the Hawk family owned 5 of these houses throughout the fruit belt. And back in their days, what it was used for was the precursor to bread and breakfast. Anyone coming in on the boats from the lake would be brought over by carriage and dropped off to any one of these houses, and they would have overnight accommodations. That explained to me the reasons why upstairs we have so many singular rooms with a closet and a single bed. When she told me that, I went, "Oh, and the bathroom down the end of the hall." It's sort of like what we lived. If you were in the seminary, that's exactly how we lived. Had individual rooms and a bathroom down the end of the hall. So she told me the history. It was called the Niagara Hotel, and was that for many years. The other houses the family sold, but chose to keep what we call the St. Jude Center now because it was the grandest, with 5 marble fireplaces, original chandeliers, hardwood floors, pocket doors, high 12-foot ceilings with brocaded molding all around. Just a lovely, lovely home. And so I walked her through the house. And as we went through room to room, she only became more emotionally upset because she was grateful that we took the time and the effort to restore the house and maintain the glory of the house from many years ago. Because when the house was built, we need to know that the city of Buffalo, the city line, ended at St. Louis's church. That was the city line, where St. Louis and the Courier Express and now the Catholic Center was. So we actually were in the country. And the Buffalo General was built historically as a sanitarium for people with polio. So that's a little bit of the background. So when they brought these people, they would stay overnight. There was a cook, there was a person who cared for the grounds, and they would bring the horses and the carriage to the stable. There was a turnstile that was run by a pulley. They would pull on the pulley and it would turn the carriage around. Carriages didn't have reverse back then. And the horses would stay now where we keep the Blessed Sacrament, and the hay would be up in the choir loft where we keep the organ. I came to the St. Jude Center back in 1975 as a seminarian and was not trained to be a hospital chaplain and was put in the midst of a process that was very challenging. Monsignor was very helpful in nurturing my career, and it was God's grace that it just took. You know when you know what you're doing is what you should be doing. This has been my only assignment, and through the grace of many good people who have helped now Monsignor, God rest his soul, and me maintain the St. Jude Center so that it becomes a place, a haven of prayer and peace. Whether they're sitting on the benches admiring and praying at the garden or going into the chapel, there's a steady flow of people coming and going from the chapel in prayer. And how many times I've come, because we have 2 masses a day at 11 o'clock and 4:30, and the chapel is open from 8 in the morning until after that 4:30 mass. So I want to think right now, with everything that's happening in the diocese, we're the only church or chapel that's open throughout the day. So anyone can come and go as they please. So we've never had any problems. And if you were to sit on the bench and watch people, whether it be staff or family members, because we work closely with the Kevin Guest House, so that we're constantly helping them in their fundraising and in their needs for donations and clothes. So we have that outreach to the community with the Kevin Guest House, as well as the High Point Nursing Home. So that really is the community of people that come and worship at St. Jude's. That is our outreach to the community, as well as the Salvation Army. I forget that we do work with the Salvation Army as well. So those are our 3 main charities or people that we work with hand in hand. We were dedicated as the official shrine in 2000, and let me look it up here. I had it on my. Where's the date? 2016. Prior to that, the shrine was at St. Stephen's that is now closed. So Bishop Malone created us as a diocesan shrine to St. Jude in 2016. We have a perpetual novena to St. Jude that happens every Wednesday at the 4:30 Mass. Like clockwork, for the last, since our birth, we've never missed, even snowstorm. People get to the shrine during some of the messiest snowstorms we have ever had. Unbelievable. I go, oh my goodness, I can't believe it. And they get stuck in our parking lots. Sometimes it can get messy. But we do have that perpetual novena, and then the solemn novena to St. Jude. That starts on October 20th to the 28th, the feast day of St. Jude. In addition to the Pastoral Institute program, we created our own novena book, which is good for the seeing impaired, large print, but it's done and created on the cycle of what the priest prays on his divine office. So the prayers of St. Jude are incorporated within the divine office. So as you pray the novena, you are actually praying the prayers that we pray as priests on a daily basis. So this is the book that we use, and it's available if anyone wants. I'd be more than willing to share that with you through the mail. This is a brand new edition. I had a young lady do some artwork, and the pictures that are on there are like stained glass, but they are of the St. Jude Center. This is a picture of the outside of the vestibule. Then there are other pictures throughout the book. I don't know how well they're going to come up with these. And it's done on a seasonal basis. So if anyone's interested in that, I'd be more than happy to make that available to you. I don't know what else. I know that I saw an article, there it is, that was written when the chapel was created, and the opening lines, one of the most remarkable enterprises in Buffalo is the St. Jude Center, which is remodeling of being remodeled and will be officially blessed by Bishop James McNulty. And so the news clips that I've seen and read only praise the fact that the church is alive and well within a very difficult environment for most people, as this abandoned carriage house speaks of God's presence to the Western New York community, as well as people really throughout the United States, because Roswell Park has people coming from all over, as well as now the Buffalo General with the GVI, Gates Vascular Institute. So our doors are open. Anything else? Any questions?
Brother Richard, well done. Thank you. You know, I'll lead it off. You're at that intersection of people's lives, families affected by long-term illness, terminal illness. St. Jude is that patron saint of that folks when that time in their lives happens. I'm sure you've seen the power of St. Jude, but in different ways. People dying of cancer may not and probably don't recover, but there is a power going on, I suspect, for both the patient as well as the family. Could you comment on that? What you've seen? What is the what you've experienced by being right at that intersection of engaged with St. Jude?
You know, there could be a perfect marriage. We have the perfect marriage in terms of what's happening here at St. Jude's. And then right next door, the next three houses are what we call the Kevin Guest House. And so the Kevin Guest House was created by the Garvey family as an outreach to people coming to Roswell Park initially. Now it offers services to O'Shea's. It offers services to Buffalo General as well. For folks coming from a distance and whose loved one are going to be in the hospital for either cancer issues or for heart surgeries or neurological or for premature birth. So they come and they have a place to stay. Now, a lot of them come and they don't have transportation. Families, they're dropped off. And so they come. And so those folks find their way. Again, we have a working relationship with the Kevin Guest House. And so they come and they will, regardless of their faith tradition as well, that's an important part of what we do. Initially, I think when Monsignor created this space, it was, it is Catholic, but it was for Catholics. Over the years, that scope has broadened. And so it's really for all faiths. As a matter of fact, we have, there are two groups that worship at St. Jude's. So one is the Hungarian Catholic community. Their church was closed and they were looking for a place. And I invited them to come. And so they've been with me for many, many years. And then maybe about 5 years ago, or maybe about 5, the Presbyterian Hungarians lost their church. And because Hungarians know Hungarians, they approached me and asked me if they could use our prayer space for their services. So they come once a month with their own priest or minister to have their services. So your question in terms of how it touches people, regardless of the faith tradition, they find a sense of peace. The people coming from Kevin Guest House, they'll come sometimes in the morning, sometimes in the evening, because they need that place away. And I have seen, I mean, the letters and the thank yous that come from these people are very heart-rendering and very great. I'm very grateful to know, let them know that we've been a part of their hopefully healing process. But in the fact when people might not have the positive experience that they're hoping for, that their loved one end up dying, again, because they're connected, there's a familiarity between them and ourselves. They feel comfortable coming and talking and working through some of their initial grief processes. We have a grief support group that meets every first Tuesday of every month. And again, that sort of embraces all types of people. So there is, in a very real way, people's lives are touched and changed, sometimes by just merely coming into the building, into the chapel, or walking around the gardens. And that's what they tell me. It's not something that I seek. I try not to bother people unless I see that they're visibly upset. But they'll come and they'll talk and they'll share.
Mm-hmm. You know, just to finalize that question, you've got a big for sale sign as part of the diocesan restructuring. What's your best view that could come out of this as it relates to the St. Jude Center? What are you hoping for? What are you helping to guide as best as you can, I'm sure?
Well, as I mentioned before, we are not a burden to the diocese. I have no bills with the diocese. We take care of all our responsibilities. So the best scenario is that no one wants to buy it. That would be my initial prayer, that after X number of months, I mean, I've shown the house to a number of people, but nothing's come of it. If, in fact, there were to be a buyer, I have talked and had meetings with the Kevin Guest House leadership people, and they are interested. However, there's a price tag, beginning price tag of 1.5 million. So I think they're in the process of trying to figure out what they can do and how they can do it. Now, the verbal conversations that we've had is that if they came up with the money, they would not have any resources to care for the building. So then I said to them, well, because they're doing some remodeling at their main house, a multi-million-dollar process. So I said, well, and if you found the money, then we could do one of two things. We could just maintain what we're doing and paying our bills, and then or just pay you rent. And so they were open to both those ideas. So that would be, in a bad situation, the best scenario that I could see.
Let's hope for the best.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate situation. When I was approached, I was bowled over when I was called down to the chancery. And what I was told was the bankruptcy courts are pulling in all the assets of the diocese. That doesn't mean parishes, that means assets. And so we are a freestanding asset in the Diocese of Buffalo. And so that's the way it goes.
Well, that's current events. Maureen, do we have some questions?
We do. A bunch of them did have to do with the for sale sign in front of the center and what the future of the center is, considering the changes that are happening in the Buffalo diocese, which I think you've already spoken to. The other question we had is the St. Jude Center has a beautiful history in our region. Thank you for your dedication. Based on your website listening, it looks like is a mass in Hungarian. Are there other languages? Are masses said in other languages as well?
No, we just do the Hungarian mass, and believe it or not, I'm doing it. The ironic thing about that Hungarian Catholic community, when they approached me, they actually had a Hungarian priest who came at 10 o'clock and would say the Hungarian mass. Well, he lasted about a year and decided to go back to God. So now we got a dilemma. What do we do? And so I said to the Hungarians, I said, well, I can do my part of the mass in English, and you can do the readings and the music, etc., in Hungarian. And so they were open to that idea. Well, now this has been going on for a lot of years. So what's happened, only because I studied Polish for many, many, many years, I've been able to pick up the propers of the Mass. And I remember it was Easter Sunday, maybe about 8 years ago, when I actually prayed the prayers in Hungarian. Well, the tears and the emotions that came from those folks. So yeah, that's the only language. I don't want to take on any other languages. But there are other masses on Sunday other than the 10 o'clock mass. We have a Saturday mass at 4:30, and then we have a Sunday morning mass at 8:45, 11:15, and then 12:30. Those are in English, just the one Hungarian Catholic mass.
Okay, that's all I have, Dennis.
Well, that's an up to date news items here. But officially, Father Richard, just to finish it up on an official note, the diocese has wanted to, if they sell the building, has still said the mission would go on. Could you at least finish by describing officially what the diocese is saying, how that mission could go on?
Well, when the news broke, I was shocked. And one of the questions that I asked the bishop, I said, well, what about the ministry? And he says, oh no, I want the ministry to continue. And I'm going, where, in the middle of Ellicott Street? So the idea of Kevin Guest House would be the ideal. We could continue our ministry. We continue to ministry to the hospitals, going there on a day-to-day basis. In the event that someone bought it and didn't want to do that, I have a couple of plans in place. The St. Jude Center will maintain itself. It might not be in the same location, but I'm reaching out to different groups that might have space that we could rent. And that would be close to the hospital for us for sick calls, because we're on call 24/7. So I have to have an ability to get to the hospital in a good amount of time. So there are, the plan is that we stay where we are. If not, I'm looking at Canisius University. I'm looking at maybe Villa Maria. They have some space there. A lot of different options. Just have to keep your minds and hearts open and see what God has in store for us.
Very good. Very good.
As my father would say, every day is like a holiday.
Father Richard, I know I consider you a good friend, and I appreciate the journey you're on, as well as your comforting role with people often at life's end, as well as just the dailiness of hospital and the staff and all you do along with celebrating the Mass. All
Well,
right.
if anyone wants a tour, if anyone needs a novena book, you can get a hold of me through Dennis, or you can just call the hospital here at 859-2194, and we can make arrangements. I'd be more than happy to share the wealth and beauty of what St. Jude's all about.
Excellent. Excellent. Say that phone number again.
716-859-2194. That's the hospital number because that's where I spend 94% of my time. So, and I always have a secretary to answer.
Excellent. Thank you, Father Richard, for a wonderful summary of a historic site, basically here in Buffalo, as well as an important sacred site.
I thank you for the opportunity. God bless you all.
Thank you. All right, folks, thanks for joining us today, and hope you come back next week. We're going to hear from Sheila Brown at WUFO Radio and the Black Radio History Collective. Now that's going to be part of Explore Buffalo's Doors Open program.